My name is DeVore. I work at Lexmark International, and this fall will be my 30th year anniversary working at Lexmark. I paid my way through college. I came in Lexington, Kentucky on a very small Volkswagen diesel Rapid with a 4-speed. I think I got 45 miles to the gallon, I think. It was about right around that time. 1981 was the year. And came in, that was the only thing I had, and I came into Lexington from Maryland, from outside of Hagerstown, Maryland. I was a college student, engineering student at the time, and I fell in love with Lexington, and I've been here ever since. So you can consider me a transplant, but I love Kentucky. This is my home. So I'm gonna share, I was thinking about all of the different connectivity today and how we all relate, how we're partners. It's not like anybody's trying to one-up one another. We're very much partners in each other's world, from power to water to social aspects to food, agriculture, all these different attributes. Sustainability is very wide, as Dr. Early spoke. It's extremely wide and broad, and you can get lost really, really quick. So what I wanted to do, if we could advance the slide, is I want to share, just kind of from my view, if I were to use an analogy of how do I really discuss the job that I'm in the role in sustainability. And think of it as like a restaurant, and you're the manager of the restaurant, and you have a lot of stakeholders, you have a lot of people that you're serving, and you care about your stakeholders. They are your people that you're providing food to, the goods and services that you're providing to. And you have a kitchen in the back, and you've got faithful chefs, waiters, waitresses, and they've been with you for a long time, and they are faithfully serving food all the time to your customers. But sometimes, you know what, the kitchen's hot, you got a lot of things going on in the back, but at the same time, you gotta have a smile on your face and you're saying, this is what we're doing for the customer. And what the customer wants, that's what they get. So you go in the back of the kitchen, you're like, hey, can you hurry back there? You know, they've been waiting about 45 minutes. That is kind of our world. Some have dietary needs. Some they want to know how many calories are in this. You may have vegans. You may have people that are meat lovers. You have all kinds of stakeholders, and so meeting those stakeholders and making sure that you balance the needs of that. So the presentation today, very short. We'll be just discussing how to set up stakeholders and to survey them, how to essentially obtain materiality, writing CSR reports. Everything that's been discussed today has been very numeric. Looking back 10 years ago, it was very conversational. Sustainability is very conversational. Every single presentation has been very numerical. As an engineer, I appreciate that. I mean, it's very numerical. Our world is very tangible. It's goods, it's values, joules, megawatts, all those types of things. So as an engineer, I appreciate those kinds of things. A little bit about Lexmark. We are here in Lexington, so we're just south of Coldstream Park on Newtown Pike. So visit us anytime here at our headquarters. We're an industry leader. We not only make the A4 laser products, but you may see the brands called Xerox, Fuji, Toshiba. We sell and make product for those as well as the Lexmark brand. So we're an industry leader. We're in over 170 countries. And so that means all the products that we sell into those countries, all of those laws and regulations that are required for 170 countries, we have to abide by. We're in 200,000 locations in our MPS footprint. We have a $6.5 million installed base, so those are our products that we have sold and placed in the market. And we've got over 1 million devices under contract, and we've got many partners. Next slide. So I'm giving you some ideas here, and this is all public. This is on our CSR website. But I want to talk about our materialities. And what is materiality? So materiality are all the things that our stakeholders are concerned about. And if I were to collect all of the different topics, from power and carbon to water to social aspects, environmental justice, all those types of things, You're going to find all of those here. Environmental compliance, our products as well as our corporation. And so that is your materiality. Those are your risks as well as your opportunities. And so when you look here, you've got innovation, you've got the materials, your circularity, your circular economy, your waste and water. These are all things that from a reporting perspective that you're watching, you're measuring, and you're monitoring and you're setting goals for. So when you build your strategy, those are really, really important. Those are the things that you're doing. At the same time, on the right-hand side, is you're not doing it blindly. And had a great conversation earlier with Shane regarding your stakeholders. I learned from him, he's an anthropology major, and he's got an undergraduate in anthropology. And I'm like, how did you get in there? And he's like, I study people. I love people. And when you can learn people and how they behave, you have empathy. And so when you have stakeholder engagement, you care about what's going on. You care about your surveying. You're wanting to make sure that what you're delivering is meaningful. So stakeholder engagement in your reporting is really important, because if you don't know your customer, you don't have service. Right? It's very, very important. So in your CSR reporting, that is something that you want to have, is to make sure you have your stakeholder, your governmental, your social, your governance, your workplace, your products, having a very clear picture of your stakeholder engagement. So I would invite anybody who would be interested, if you're along your journey of reporting, you can go to csr.lexmark.com. That is our public site that we have all of our CSR reports since 2007, when we first started our reporting. You will see a progress year on year. And so right about now, this is when we release our next report from last year. And you'll, right now, I think we're at 92-page report, lots and lots of metrics, so graphs, carbon neutrality, all kinds of things regarding our water usage, our water reduction, all those types of things. So we welcome you to go to csr.lexmark.com. Next slide. So I really don't want to focus on achievements, but really KPIs. And so KPIs are key performance indicators. And those are things that numerically, again, back to the numerics, they're tangible. You can measure your power consumption, you can measure your water consumption, all those types of things. And so setting those goals in place and having accountability for those teams are super important. So we've committed to carbon neutrality by 2035. Those are plans in place that we have. We've reduced our water consumption by 34%. One of the things we did here in Lexington that maybe you have heard about in the news, but we have a rainwater collection. Last year we collected 7 million gallons of rainwater and put them back into our cooling towers. So those are this is just one example of being able to, right here in Lexington, have rainwater harvesting that allowed us to reduce our footprint. And so those weren't accidental, those were strategic. We wanted to do it, it was a long-term goal, and that was something that we were able to achieve. And so you're gonna learn from the other panelists. They've set their goals, they've set their, the things that they want to do strategically long-term as well as short-term. And so we encourage you each to have those very specific goals, think long-term. 2035 is a long way away. That's kind of where we have our sights, is long-term as well as short-term. So we have a few other things, obviously leaders in circular economy, and we've been doing a circular economy now for 30 years. Our cartridges, we actually do a cartridge return program. So all of our cartridges have an opportunity, you just put a label on it and it comes right back. We refill it and put it back into the marketplace. I will say, from an engineer perspective, one of the things that we're most pleased about from a product side is that when we place products into the market, those are devices that get used. One of the things that we're doing is we're taking waste, which is electronic waste, and we're incorporating that waste back into our products, into our plastics. So we're reincorporating that waste into our products. So by 2025, 50% of the mass that we place on the market of plastics will actually have come from waste. So that's something we're very proud of. Finally, and I'll try to keep it short here, is last slide is what we're really pleased about is our solar panels. In April of this year, we're pleased to announce a 2 megawatt array here in Lexington, Kentucky. And 2 megawatt array, it's going to serve 3.3 million kilowatts per year, and which is about 10% usage at maximum conditions, and then at other conditions, nominal usage, high solar radiation, we would be at 100%. So that we're really proud of that 5,000 solar panels. It's consuming about 7.5 acres of our brown ground, if you will, our brown fields. So one last little caveat on the solar panels. If that wasn't enough, we want to make it an opportunity for STEM. And this is a great opportunity for where perhaps young engineers, electrical engineers, or whatnot, material scientists, they may want to understand solar panels, solar conversion, AC to DC conversion, AC to AC conversion. Those are great opportunities for young minds to learn about solar and about renewables. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the next speaker.
Okay. Thanks, Blaine. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to take Blaine's lead and embarrass about 5 people and make you stand up before I start talking. Just kidding. I'm not really going to do that. I am going to talk fast. I've got a lot to cover, and so I'm going to hit a pretty high pace. I tried to get some espresso from the coffee shop down the street, but they closed early and I couldn't get it. So it's going to have to be all natural, fast-paced talking. I'm a 5th generation Kentuckian from Crooked Creek, Kentucky, which is in the southeast corner of Taylor County on the floodplain of Green River Lake. I rolled into Lexington a few years after David, but in a 1979 4-speed Honda Civic.
I like it.
Very similar gas mileage. I actually rolled into Lexington to attend Transylvania University. I didn't last. I just actually saw the Dean of Students who I had last seen about 25 years ago during a punitive meeting. Not why I left Transy. I left in good standing, but it was good to see Dean Cohen out in the hallway. I'm very grateful to be here. Big shout out to our sponsors and our organizers, so I want to reiterate that in that position of gratitude. Handful of intro points before I kick into my slides. About sustainability planning. So sustainability plans, as David mentioned, and so did Blaine, really represent the opportunity to connect in a meaningful way the range of topics that you've heard today, and frame initiatives and goals relative to your particular entity's mission, vision, values, and goals. They also represent a silo-busting way of creating shared vision and accountability and effective investment of resources in organizations of all sizes. So they are a very important strategic tool, regardless of your organization type or size. I think that sustainability strategic plans create a decision-making ecosystem where people on the planet can have equal footing with economic concerns, with a long view goal of elevating all 3 of those things. I think in a short view goal where the economic bottom line is overemphasized, we shortchange the other 2 at our own loss longer term. With all that said, I'll share UK's story as an example of how this can be done, with a disclaimer that this is a new slide deck for me, and so I may trip over it a little bit, but I'll fight through it. And then a tech question, can I get up and kind of move away from the table so I can see the screen? All right. Oh. Good deal. Good deal. All right. So first slide. I'm going to start with some metaphors and analogies. Next slide. These are the classics, right? The overlapping Venn diagram of people, profit, and planet, which morphs into a triple bottom line, where you've got an economic bottom line, a social bottom line, and an environmental bottom line, and you're trying to have KPIs across all 3. It also gets talked about in terms of a 3-legged stool, that if you've got strong environmental programs and social programs and economic programs, that you've got a balanced level stool that could be called the sustainability platform. Next slide. And then there are others, metaphors. I'll start with a nice one, that sustainability often gets treated as the icing on the cake. But that can also be framed as the lipstick on the pig, or the greenwashing and the window dressing. And so treating sustainability as a nice to have, if you have money left over to create a sweet coating on an otherwise fundamentally different thing, is not what you want to do with a sustainability strategic plan. Next. I prefer to think about sustainability as the leavening, an essential ingredient that you know you're going to have if you're going to bake, that helps the system rise. And I think if you're going to treat sustainability that way, it's a paradigm shift in terms of where you have the planning processes and the discussions. It is not just an environmental thing. Next. I also want to turn this stool upside down. I've spent the most of my 20 years in this career buying into the metaphor that you could take a little bit from this leg and a little bit from this leg and a little bit from that leg and then call it sustainability. Well, the events of the pandemic and the social reckoning that this country has been dealing with since then, although we've been dealing with it for much longer, that we have been openly dealing with since then, really caused me to start to shift that thinking, and I think you've got to flip it upside down. I think that the starting point has to be equity and justice, and on a foundation of equity and justice, you can build strong, balanced environmental economic programs. Next. So what's that look like? For me and for us, that looks like acknowledging that this place, prior to the 9 generations that Commissioner Quarles' family has been here, was home to the Cherokee, the Shawnee, and the Chickasaw. And that before that, native peoples of this continent have inhabited these unique ecosystems for millennia, developing robust social and economic systems that were calibrated to the unique natural resources of this place. So I think that's an important starting point if you want to put equity at the basis of it. Now, you've heard earlier today from Commissioner Quarles and others that we are a land grant institution. Well, land grant institutions came from the Morrill Act of 1862, in which the U.S. government took land from Native peoples and gave it to universities to raise capital to create land grant institutions. The University of Kentucky received 2,350 parcels of land that were taken either through cession, treaty, or seizure from 43 different Native nations. So that created the basis for our endowments. It also created the basis for our cooperative extension service, through which we disseminate the knowledge that we generate on campus. In an interesting coincidence, the Trail of Tears, through which so many Cherokee and others were marched from this part of the country west, passes along the border of our Princeton Research Facility. There's a historical marker adjacent to our property there saying people were resettled from it. So that's all like pretty high level stuff that like starts to play some heartstrings. How do you operationalize that? How do you create a foundation of equity? So first you got to acknowledge the history. And then you can build strong programs on that. So what if, and this is hypothetically speaking, I am very grateful to be here on behalf of the university, but this hypothetical scenario does not represent a program under development. But what if anyone who was forcibly resettled from the Commonwealth of Kentucky got in-state tuition? Do we start to build a community of Native scholars at the university that then enhances our understanding of these ecosystems because you're pulling from cultures that have been here for thousands of years, and then that lifts all ships. That becomes leaven. So we start there. Next. So fast forwarding, sustainability, and I'll say also like you start there because that's the foundational point timeline-wise, but from an equity standpoint, you work your way forward from there, and you look at a lot of other things. So you look at how redlining affected the accumulation of wealth differentially among people who look different in this community. It continues to affect tree canopy coverage in this community. Formerly redlined zones have way less tree canopy coverage, and that has health implications and mental well-being implications to the people that have to live there. Jada's doing some really neat work trying to address some of the shortcomings that even our programs that are designed to address that still play into the people that have the ability to do it are the ones taking advantage of the resources because it's a reimbursement program. You got to shell out money on the front end to be able to take advantage of it. She's working to shift that. Thank you. Sustainability UK current state next. We're a big place, 50,000 people. We pulse 50,000 in and out each day. We're the 4th largest city in the state if we're treated that way. And we have kingdoms. I've got 6 of those kingdoms up there, and so we've got healthcare, which is our biggest kingdom. If you don't see behind the curtain, healthcare is a huge component of what we do. We have teaching through the provost. We have finance and administration, which is where I'm based. We have research. We have athletics, and then, as I mentioned, extension and land grant mission. So that's kind of a partial landscape. Next, sustainability fits across that landscape in a lot of different ways. I've been working at this for 20 years with an eye toward deep integration across our operations. And so the green bars represent sustainability specific with, it says sustainability in the title, of programs or planning initiatives that are embedded across the ecosystem as you get. Next. Our mission. So we're a land grant university dedicated to improving people's lives through excellence in education, research, and creative work, service, and healthcare. As a flagship institution with a critical role in leadership by promoting diversity, inclusion, economic development, and human well-being. So that's the mission of the university. To help accomplish that, we have 2 kind of guiding documents. One is our strategic plan that guides programmatically what we do, and then our master plan guides physically what we do. So the master plan is physical campus, strategic plan is programmatic goals and such. Next. Within each of those, sustainability is embedded at a high level. Within the strategic plan that we just adopted, the North Star that guides everything we do must be to advance Kentucky. It's economy, health, unique biodiversity and natural resources, and educational attainment. So there you see the triple bottom line language. We didn't say sustainability, you don't have to, but the triple bottom line is embedded in the North Star statement from the strategic plan. In the master plan, sustainability is one of 7 guiding principles for the physical development of the campus, along with growth and academic environments, mobility, etc. Next. So we have a sustainability strategic plan that expires at the end of this year. This is our first pass at it. It's a 5-year plan, and so in terms of where we are, we've done 1, and we're working on an update to it. And so in terms of thinking about framing questions for us later, we're at that phase in our sustainability plan. Next. And the way that it looked, it had 7 operational areas. Each operational area had tactics and action items, and those 7 operational areas were materials management, and blah, 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 and I'll come back to that in a minute. Each of those 7 areas got this type of 2-pager in the plan. Next. And we've had some notable successes, right? You can click through. As you heard earlier, we have the only multi-million-dollar contracted spend on local food and higher ed in the country. So we're national leadership space on that. I don't know why those words aren't there. Interesting. The invisible words say that we also last fall aimed to deal with Kentucky Utilities for what's called a sleeved PPA, where we're buying 55 megawatts of solar power from a facility that will be built in western Kentucky. That is going to provide 1/3 of the university's electricity when it comes online in 2024 or 2025. But, the but floated in one of it, but, next. Our 5 years was up. UK adopted a new strategic plan. There's much more to do to become part of the 11A, and our elevator pitch needed work. So when I tried to tell people about our sustainability strategic plan, it targets 7 operational areas. I can remember 5 of them, I forget 2 of them, and when I forget 2 of them, I've lost you and you don't know anything about what UK is doing for sustainability. So our elevator pitch needed work. Next. So we launched the process to update our sustainability strategic plan in January. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on process because I think this is critically important. Stakeholder engagement. You cannot create a sustainability plan in a vacuum. If you hire somebody and tell them to sit in their office and create a sustainability plan for your organization and don't give them the time or resources to engage broadly across your enterprise, it will fail. It will be destined to fail. But your process is going to look different based on who you are and what you are, right? So that's why the Rube Goldberg. And it's also a messy, time-intensive process to get the right stakeholders to the table, to have top-down leadership tell them that they should be at the table and take it seriously when they're there, and then to have them stay accountable through the shared vision and goal-setting process. I don't have any full-time reports in my office. I work as a high-level consultant at the upper level of the university and create action through collaborative goal setting and shared vision, and then in the reporting, I get to ask the people who said they were going to be responsible for the thing, how you doing on that? But I don't have to deal with the HR when they get caught sleeping in the truck or anything like that. So I like my position as a consultant. I don't want to be a manager. But I am doing some management right now, actively. So if anybody here is talking to my boss, I'm really happy with my current assignment. So our process, we have at the high level, the president appoints a sustainability advisory committee. So you get your CEO, you get your president, you get whoever to take it seriously and create a committee of people who are responsible for doing a thing. That group appointed a steering committee that was charged with developing our plan. That steering committee has high-level leadership. This is an enterprise-wide plan for us. And so when I say that, that's healthcare, athletics, and everything else. And that's important for us to be enterprise-wide. So we have healthcare leadership at the table. The athletics department is at the table at a high level as well. And then that steering committee, what's my next slide? That's fun. So you can stay on it. It's a year-long process. This Gantt chart follows a 12-month development. The rainbow at the bottom are the distinct entities that are working in parallel on getting it done. The steering committee is light blue. So you can see there, they got little meetings interspersed throughout where they're keeping everything going. The Office of Sustainability, which is me, is the dark blue. So we've got steering committee meets, they create some stuff that has to get done. We do the heavy lifting. And then, so what we did first, in this February-March timeframe, which are these columns, we went back to our vision. Next slide, I think, is a better one. We're talking about this. So we wanted the top line of the plan to be a vision statement. Better elevator pitch, right? And then we workshopped that with campus and through some feedback, created a draft, and we also asked them about what they thought the highest priorities for the campus were for the next 10 years, and out of those high priorities came some guiding principles. We then sent all of that out to 13 different leadership nodes across the enterprise and said, hey, any red flags? Are we okay to proceed here? And we got feedback from all 13 of them, which included like our alumni association, our grad student congress, vice president for research, all of the key leadership nodes across the campus. So at this point, that statement is approved by high-level leadership across the enterprise. So I never have to backtrack further than there, which is nice. And we integrated that feedback and then came up with this, that our guiding principles are going to be to make our pursuit of sustainability an integral part of the UK student experience. What's the next slide? It might be better for this. Yeah. And so this is the conceptual model of those 5 guiding principles. The foundation is to make it part of the UK student experience. On that, we've got 3 operational targets of decarbonizing our operations, becoming zero waste, and modeling environmental excellence. Tying all that together is a reinforcement of the university's commitment to justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that's the conceptual model of guiding principles. That's the second line in the plan. So top line is vision, second line, guiding principles. Each of these guiding principles has a task force. Go back. 2. Task force is goals. So they're working now to develop 10 to 15 SMART goals that scaffold up to their guiding principle. Out of that, they're allowed to have 3 sub-goals per goal. And then out of that, we'll end up with 5 to 7 goals per guiding principle that ends up in the final plan that we plan to unveil in like October. And so if they max out, right, if they've got 5 of them, they max out at 7 with 3 sub-goals, I got 105 KPIs in this plan that have to be tracked. That's enough for us. Yeah, again, like that. So, back one, yeah, this one. So this is kind of what I went through. Top line, vision. Second line, guiding principles. Third line, goals. Fourth line, sub-goals. I don't want to go deeper than sub-goals. And so I want the sub-goals to be assignable to a unit or a person. So when we get down to the level of defining a sub-goal, I want an accountable individual who is responsible for reporting. I also want to build in dynamic reporting to this so that I can effectively show quarter by quarter how we're doing. You got to build that in on the front end. You got to plan for reporting as you develop your goals, because you can't have a goal that doesn't have any data set or any person accountable for it and then be able to report on how you're doing. And then next this is the money shot, right? So this is how all of this fits in. So our work, we've heard a little bit about this, is derived some of its direction and material from the UN Sustainable Development Goals. These are like the social fundamentals of the world and the ecological fundamentals of the world. We hear a lot about economic fundamentals, the fundamentals of economics and how important those are. Well, there are fundamental social factors and fundamental ecological factors that factor in as well. The UN has done a great job of coming up with 17 goals that incorporate that. So those inform our work. So does STARS. STARS is unique to higher ed, but it is a big framework that I use all the time. So those inform us, and then we align all of that with UK's strategic plan and master plan. And then reporting out on progress in a way that's captivating and engaging has to be built in from the front end. Next. Documenting our progress. So we've got a blog called Wholesome. We've got 3 documents on our process so far from this calendar year, and we'll continue to do this. And then to make my life easier, those become chapters in the plan when it's done, right? So I don't have to write it all at the very end. I just pull all the blog posts together, have someone that's amazing at that sort of thing, put it in the same voice, and then we're almost done. So I encourage you, if you're interested in it, that captures what we're doing so far. I think that's it. Yeah. Cool. Thanks.
We made a joke before we came up here that one of us were going to say, we're what stands between you and the beer. And they both forgot, so I got the joke as my opener. So like you said, I am in Berea. I first came to Berea in 2000, and I'm not going to stand up. I'm good with sitting down. If it were up to me, all of you all would be here, more intimate. In 2000, to go to college, I had a 1986 Pontiac Sunbird at the time. Since we were talking about our vehicles. And like you said, it went off. I came back to work for the college at the time when they were building Deep Green Residence Hall, which is, if you don't know, the greenest residence hall in the world. It's platinum certified LEED, or LEED, platinum, however order it goes. And what?
Living Building Challenge?
Living Building Challenge.
3 petals from the Living Building Challenge.
Okay, cool. So what that means is it takes, you have LEED certified buildings, but this one is really stellar in that all of the materials were sourced within 300 miles of where it was built. The air quality even, I remember that was the biggest issue, was waiting for the air quality testing to go through, because that was our last thing we were waiting for. Because they didn't use, stains or polyurethanes or anything on the material, so that wasn't in the air. So there's a lot of fascinating things about that building. You should definitely visit if you have the opportunity. How many of you have actually been to Berea before? Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
We're
good
so
turnout.
I know, we're awesome. But so to come back to it, Berea has a town and gown relationship. It has, the gown is the college, the town is everybody else. And to give you some backdrop, it was the first integrated school in the South. So before the Emancipation Proclamation, an abolitionist pastor was educating African Americans and women and giving them a higher education. Now, the other unique factor about Berea College is that it's a work college, one of 7 in the nation. So if you are accepted to the college, you have to work for the college about 10 to 15 hours a week, and that is a self-sustaining feature. So when the college first started, they were growing the food they were eating in the cafeteria, serving themselves, right? So it's coming from this history of sustainable thought, right? And the college was what created the city. John G. Fee, the pastor that I talk about, he was given land and he literally built the city. One black family, one white family, one black family. It's a checkerboard. You can go down in the archives and look at how the city was laid out. It was intentional. Some of that remains to this day, along with some of the racial tension that existed at that time. So, cut to, in knowing that I was going to come here and talk about politics, basically, I looked back prior to my service on city council to see what had been done. And there was this beautiful collaboration that happened in 2012 between Joshua Bills, who's Mountain Association, Berea College, the city, a number of other stakeholders, but it was all of the entities that came together for what was called the Berea Energy Cost Savings Plan, okay? And that started with an energy audit. And so in doing that, they gave all of these wonderful, wonderful suggestions. So for those of you working in city government, if you want to look at that plan, it gives just a great place to start and think about little things, right? So like a police department, how many hours a day or a quarter does a police cruiser idle? So it has a lot of features like that might be helpful to people. But going back to the plan, after that, soon after that, if you remember, around 2008, and I'm trying not to be like negative about any political sphere, because that was a collaboration of people from all walks of life. But we have seen politics become much more polarized, and in that process, for whatever reason, at least in Berea, and I think it's indicative of other places, sustainability has taken a backseat in terms of priorities. When they say a city budget is a moral document, it literally will tell you what a city values. And if there's nothing like a sustainability director that's included in your budget, there's not much that's going to be done by way of that, it's fair to say. But what came out of that energy plan, a little bit of good did come out of it. We have solar panels on City Hall and our utilities building. A more efficient City Hall because it was being built at the same time too. I'm not sure, I asked before I came here if it was LEED certified. I don't think it is LEED certified, but I think it could with the retrofitting that they did certain things. And they went through and they changed out all the lights, little things that the plan made easy for them to do, right? Cut to, how did we go from that in 2012 to when I was serving around 2018, and there was an unwillingness to even pay $800 for land markers for the trails. $800. So that tells you what I was personally up against in terms of asking 7 colleagues when I was a political minority to value sustainable measures. And so in saying that, I think if I were to make suggestions, right, which I'm hoping that people have questions and I can give more specific examples of how you can address the issues. But reframing the conversation, and by that I mean, we don't have the environment that my friend here does where people are supportive of a sustainability plan. And if you notice, I think one of the reasons why it was called the Berea Energy Cost Savings was a reframing to where there could be buy-in, right? And it comes down to the bottom line for most cities or municipalities. So any way that you can frame it that's not using, unfortunately, trigger words for certain individuals, sustainability, green, sorry, but that's the truth. They're trigger words at this point, and people will shut down. And so that's one suggestion. One of the things that I came across too that I haven't heard talked about a whole lot, but some in your presentation, is environmental racism. Say, for instance, developers had stormwater, right, draining into historically black neighborhoods. And that's happening in Berea. So you have Black families who their land is being ruined and basically rendered useless because it's flooded with these runoff from these developer lands that were approved for the city. Now, we've had people, lovely people in industry, and I don't want to necessarily be mean to them, but from a philosophical standpoint, the more cities can divest from certain industry, the better off they will be in terms of sustainability. What I saw in Berea was hundreds of thousands of dollars being funneled into industrial development that there was no one sitting there saying, well, have you thought about X, Y, and Z sustainable measures instead what we're giving them are tax abatements and rolling out the red carpet and not making note of how that may impact our local environment. And I think that's true of many smaller cities. I call it third world America. A lot of people come to Kentucky to extract our cheaper labor, our lax laws, and I see that in Berea too, where it's this mentality that's like, oh, well, my grandfather came through industry and worked in a factory and it raised our whole family. I come from the same, my father worked in a factory. So, but I also saw how extractive it was, the turnover, and then from a city standpoint, so we're kind of in a chokehold, and sorry if I'm getting off on a tangent here, but when the city's revenue, 65% of it comes from payroll tax, and you get a lot of payroll tax from big industry because they employ more people, you kind of have to keep playing into that lottery, is what I call it at this point, because we've seen industry decline for the last 30 years, but we still keep putting in our hat for that lottery, like they'll come to my city and they'll build in my city. Berea has not seen a new industry outside of that harvest now, if you consider that industry. New industry in the last 30 years. It's only been expansions of current industry, right? So this idea that we're funneling thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars into consultants and people to try to vie for big industry, I think is not sustainable financially, but also not sustainable in terms of our environment. Okay, that soapbox done for now, unless someone wants to deeper dive into that. Another suggestion is places like Mountain Association, where I work now, they have an EPAD ordinance already drafted and readily available to cities. Now, asking cities to adopt them, that's another thing. You have to find people who believe in it. But I suggest now, and it's something that I might take up, because I'm new at Mountain Association, I just started like 2 months ago. But something I might try to take on is, cities having insurers. For Berea, it's KLC, that's one of the largest Kentucky League of Cities. What if Kentucky League of Cities also sent that out, not with an endorsement necessarily, but once it comes from that voice saying this is an option for your city to use, should you want to, it holds a little more weight and people might take it a little more seriously. Also, when the last thing I will contribute to suggestions, because when Blaine was talking to me, I was like, we didn't have a sustainability plan. I wasn't on board when all of that other stuff that I told you about was going on, and they were very, very, very resistant to any conversation around sustainability. But there are little ways that you can do more. And one of those ways is, if a city won't adopt a sustainability plan, maybe a department will. Maybe you talk to a department head, maybe you talk to the chief of police, all right? And they're willing to have those conversations about idle time, and they're willing to have a conversation, and they're willing to put into their budget, which is then approved by the larger council. Once it's in their budget, the larger council isn't most of the time parsing through it. And so there's ways you can get in there, but then if you are the politician, right, if you're the person in power, one of the ways that I try to impact that sort of thing. There was a GIS assistant. You know, he was like the lowest level in our GIS department, but really cool guy. And I saw that he was into, you know, doing some sustainability stuff. And, you know, I had already left council and everything, but he was trying to apply for a job at the state. So I offered him a recommendation. But he now is the reason why the state just released the what is it called, health water report thing. There's a new portal with the state that you can go and look at, and he was responsible for that. So for me, that's succession planning. That's also believing in people and, you know, bolstering them up and building them up to go on and do bigger and better things with broader reach. I'll leave it at that. And I hope people have specific questions that we can answer. Thank you.
Thank you.